Alright, so let's talk about the upcoming changes to Hearthstone a little bit. First, let's talk about a thing that I don't think is controversial in the least. They're overhauling how the ladder system works, and in a nutshell, the way the system currently works is that you fall all the way back to rank 25 at the beginning of every month, but depending on how well you did the previous season, you would gain bonus stars that would rocket you forward several ranks. So if you reached legendary in the previous season, you would get enough bonus stars to be at almost rank 15. I think you show up at rank 16 with full stars, so that one win takes you directly to rank 15. But if you only reach rank 20, you get a small handful of bonus stars and you start out at like rank 23, something like that. I think that system kind of sucks for two reasons. A, it's just a huge grind. In order to reach legendary every month, you do have to play hundreds of games. Reason number two that the current system kind of sucks is that it kind of makes for a really bad new user experience. Say you are a new player coming into the game and you have a few cards, but you don't necessarily dedicate yourself to the game, so you aren't necessarily skilled at the game yet. You're still kind of learning the ropes, right? And then all of a sudden you get paired against player after player after player with a legendary card back because they've fallen that far down the ladder. And it makes for, I think, a really poor new user experience when you run into players of legendary caliber at rank 20. So those are the kind of the two complaints that I've always had about the Hearthstone ladder system, and I think that the changes they have suggested address both of those concerns quite well. Starting with March 2018, players will only be reset 4 ranks at the end of each month. So if you finish at legendary, you fall down to rank 4, and that's awesome. Players who are at legendary caliber should remain at the higher ranks of the ladder and entirely quite far away from all the new players and the people who don't have that many cards and the people who just want to play fun games. Those people are more likely to stay around rank 15, 20, 25, somewhere in that range, and the legendary players should never ever fall that far. So it makes for a better new user experience. It works better to segregate out the people who play seriously and try hard from the people who just want to play more casually and have more fun. And it makes the game a lot less of a grind for the people who want to reach legendary every season. The other set of changes, and I don't know how controversial this really is, but I kind of disagree with the changes, is that they are nerfing several cards, including Patches the Pirate. Alright, so Patches the Pirate loses charge. I don't know who's in charge here, but it's not Patches anymore. Raza the Chained, the hero power now costs 1 instead of 0. Corridor Creeper is now a 2/5 instead of a 5/5. And Bonemare now costs 8 mana. I don't disagree with any of the cards that they targeted. Corridor Creeper was showing up in aggro decks and mid-range decks and tempo decks and control decks. Like, I can't argue that Corridor Creeper was too prevalent and needed to be changed. Same with Bonemare. It was showing up in aggro decks. Maybe not true aggro decks, like aggro Paladin wouldn't play Bonemare, but tempo mid-range decks like Hunter and Tempo Rogue and control decks like Warrior Control would play Bonemare. Bonemare was seen play in way too many decks, so I understand why that was changed. Patches and Raza, though, they're going to rotate out in 2 or 3 months anyway. I mean, I understand why they were targeted. Patches has been a problem card for quite some time, and Raza has also been a problem card for quite some time. I think they targeted the correct cards, but I think where I do have a problem is how they choose to target cards. Before I played Hearthstone, way back in the dark ages where you had to actually be in the same room with somebody to play a card game with them, I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and Magic operates very differently than Hearthstone does, just based on the fact that it is a physical product. For the most part, once a card was printed, it was printed, and if a card became a problem in a format, they would just ban the card from the format. One of the cool things about Hearthstone being a digital card game is that it's easy to buff and nerf compared to Magic, so I think it's cool that Hearthstone has the ability to go in and tweak cards. But there's drawbacks to being able to do that. case in point is like Molten Giant. Handlock is a deck that was a lot of fun. I don't think it was overpowered. I don't think it was too good. I don't think it was too prevalent. But because Molten Giant was nerfed from 20 mana to 25 mana, Handlock is no longer even remotely viable as a deck. Same with like Starving Buzzard. Starving Buzzard was way too good of a card, but it was nerfed so that it became an utterly unplayable card. I guess I just kind of feel, I think my personal opinion is that if you're going to nerf a card so bad that it becomes unplayable, what's the difference between a nerf and a ban? Like, you're basically banning the card, right? I personally think it's better to just go ahead and say, we're banning this card in Standard. It's kind of the same as retiring a card. I forget what they call it. Hall of Fame, I think they call it. They put Sylvanas and Ragnaros and Azure Drake into the Hall of Fame. They said the card is now banned in Standard, but you can still play it in Wild, is basically what it is. And to me, that's what Wild is. Wild is the place where you can go play all the most broken cards and do all the most broken things. And I wish that what we had was a Standard that has no Molten Giant, no Knife Juggler, no Bonemare, no Corridor Creeper, and then we have a Wild that has 7 mana Bonemare, 3/2 Knife Juggler. I would rather see these overpowered cards just be relegated to Wild and removed entirely from Standard. I know Blizzard doesn't agree. I know that that's not their philosophy, but I think effectively what they have done by nerfing these cards is they have banned them from both Wild and Standard, because maybe not Bonemare. Bonemare still might see some play. I don't think so, because 8 mana is a lot of mana, and you can get like, would you rather have a Bonemare or would you rather have a Lich King for 8 mana? Like, most of the time I think you'd rather have a Lich King, right? But Bonemare is good enough that it might be worth 8 mana in the right deck. But who's gonna play a 2/5 Corridor Creeper? This nerf is so strong that it's the same as banning the card. So why not just ban it in Standard and let it go to Wild? Same with Patches. Patches without charge, it's not going to get played. It's effectively the same as a ban. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being overly pessimistic about this. Maybe some of these cards will still see play. And if they do, then okay, I was wrong. I'll be happy to admit I was wrong then, but I think that most of these nerfs mean that the cards won't be played anymore. I probably should have prefaced the discussion with this, but like, I base all of my opinions coming from the viewpoint that I think Standard is the format that Blizzard cares about the most. I think it's the format that players care about the most. And I think that Standard is the thing that bans and buffs and nerfs should be made to affect. I actually do care about Wild, and I think Wild is fun, and what I like about Wild is that Wild is where you go to do all these crazy broken things that are no longer acceptable in Standard. You know, too powerful for Standard, but it's right at home in Wild. I like the idea that, okay, Handlock is no longer allowed in Standard because it was too good or too strong or whatever. But I can still go to Wild and play Handlock if I want to. Like, that's what I want from Wild, is I want to be able to go play the decks that I used to be able to play, but they aren't Standard legal anymore. I want to be able to go to Wild and play Undertaker Hunter, right? Basically all the decks that used to be good, but no longer are legal in Standard, I want to be able to go to Wild and play them. But I can't. Because instead of banning cards and relegating them to Wild, the cards have been nerfed in such a way that the decks are just dead forever. And I think that's a bummer. There's totally the possibility that my philosophy on Wild would make Wild an untenable format. So maybe we'd have to do additional damage control in Wild. But I think that's preferable to just changing how cards work forever and destroying decks forever. Anyway, overall, I think that these changes are positive for the format. I think that they targeted the correct cards. I just, you know, one day I might want to go play Tempo Rogue with a charging Patches and the 7 mana Bonemare, and I can't do it. I kind of think that that's a shame. You know, in Magic you can ban a card, but If you want to sit around the kitchen table and play your cards with your friends the way that they were printed, you can do that. Whereas in Hearthstone, they actually take that away from you. They physically take that away from you. And I think that's a little bit of a bummer. Anyway, new changes are coming. I don't mean to be too negative about the changes because I think the changes are overall healthy for the game. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the new format looks like with these cards basically banned from with these cards basically banned from Standard. I guess one last point is I saw a tweet that Brian Kibler made, and I think it's even quoted on this in this article. I agree with what Brian Kibler said here, and I think that we need to keep an eye on the Q block deck, which is probably only going to get stronger, and we're going to have to watch out for nerfs to either Carnivorous Cube or Doomguard is going to be sent to the Hall of Fame. I guess that's my thoughts on the changes coming to Hearthstone. I feel like I maybe got a little bit too negative in the middle there, but overall I think that all of these changes are very positive for the game, and I'm looking forward to playing in the new format. Alright, that's it for today. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to let me know you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching.